Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ripple Intent Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kyle McCroskey, and with me, as always, is John Grant. John, please go ahead and say hi.
Hi, listener.
Hope you're all doing well today, and in our ever winding journey to try to figure out how to start off this podcast in the right way. Well, a little bit about Ripple Intent. So we're a nonprofit organization based in Denver, Colorado, and we host events throughout the year, throughout the country, where we get together and have the meaningful conversations that help you become a better person, better teammate, a better leader. And through our podcast, we have found the opportunity to have some great conversations with people that we've met along these journeys through Ripple Intent, and hear their story. And today, one of those people is joining us. She's an exceptional person who's helped to get us going in the Houston area. We started years ago, pre-pandemic, paused during COVID, and then came back with the fury after. And the Houston community has grown leaps and bounds, which is super fun, and really enjoy spending time with her and getting to know her and her team, and thought that you would enjoy listening to her journey, her story, and what she does. And so, Rhona, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you being here. Say
Thanks
hello,
for having
please.
me.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody.
So I mentioned you're down in Houston, you're down in Texas, but that's not where you're from, right?
No, I'm from Buffalo, New York. You know, I was there for quite some time, all my formative years and beyond. And then my husband dragged me down here, kicking and screaming. But I've frankly really enjoyed the Houston community, and I really like living here. I didn't think I would ever say that, but I do.
Especially coming from Buffalo, where there's, about a week of humidity?
Yeah, it's really hot down here. I will say I have acclimated to the weather. The one thing that would make my life better is not having mosquitoes in my life.
I think we could all agree with that. I'd be okay with that too. So how did you get to where you are? Tell us a little bit about that. What's your journey look like from how did you get to, you're in architecture now, big leadership position within a large architectural firm in the country. So what got you to that point?
Well, I'm going to quote the Beatles and say it was a long and winding road, even though that's probably my least favorite song by them. You know, when I was younger, I was one of those people that thought I would have a very straight path to what I would do in life. And at a young age, I had an eye injury, and that really, it wasn't like a huge one. Obviously, I'm fine, but it really shaped my idea of the world, because I found out, you know, I needed glasses. I could see everything a whole lot better after the whole experience. And I really wanted to be an ophthalmologist. It just really intrigued me because they really helped me. And so that was kind of my path. And when I was in high school, I was able to see surgery in an OR and had quite an experience there, because I almost passed out. And then, you know, they whisked me away and all the nurses told me all of their pass out stories, and they were horrific. And I thought, you know what? I don't think this is for me. So then I was like, well, I could be an optometrist. And so that was my path. And in college, I was in an accelerated program, and I was on my way to going to optometry school. And I worked at an eyeglass shop for several summers, which I adore. And the owner of that shop is basically like an aunt of mine. And that's why I have fabulous glasses as well. But, you know, having your eyes examined, it's always a very intimate experience, I think. You're in a room with one other individual, and they're like getting really close to your face and looking into your eye. And I thought, you know what? I don't think this is for me. I'm more of a people person. And so because it was an accelerated program, I randomly fell into an art class because it was a liberal arts school and I had to get my art credit. And I ended up being really good at drawing, something I never knew I could do because I was in band throughout high school and elementary school. And so I ended up getting another major. So I graduated with a biology and art degree. And what do you do with that? I don't know.
Draw some really cool animals.
So I was very fortunate. When I graduated, I got a ticket from my cousin Peter, who worked at Delta. And I basically went to Europe for 4.5 months by myself. And the only way I could do it, or the only way that my mom would let me do it, was to sign up for art school for a month and a half in Florence. And then I got a 3-month Eurail pass, and I traveled around and had adventures. And then after that, I realized I could really do anything. So then what do you do after that? Well, I kind of kicked around and had a million different jobs. I thought about being an art conservator. I took a bunch of art history classes. I took photography classes. And I waitressed a lot. I love the hustle. I love making people happy, enjoying others' company. I have to say I absolutely loved waitressing because I worked with a really solid group of people that I'm still friends with to this day. And it was exciting and fun and new every day. And then my now husband, you can only wait, or I knew I could only waitress for so long because I don't know. I felt like I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think I was working as a picture framer at that point. My husband, this is so tacky and cliche a little. We were watching American Masters on PBS. Yes, I'm a dork. But they had Frank Lloyd Wright, and my dad always loved Frank Lloyd Wright. But I never thought I could be an architect. I took architectural history. I took architectural history in college, but never thought, I could be an architect. Well, we were watching it, and my husband said, "Well, you could be an architect. Why didn't you ever think of that?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Well, incidentally, his mom was an architect back in Serbia. And so, it was literally like a pivot at that point. I got into the 3.5-year master's program at UB pretty much. It was like overnight, basically. And yeah, that's where it all started with architecture. But in retrospect, it was always kind of in the background for me, with the travels and all of that. It just felt right. Yeah. And I love it.
You're like, yeah, see, simple. It made sense. Everybody can relate. I think more people can relate than we give credit to. I mean, there's so many, we were talking beforehand, there's so many people that enter art industry from so many different paths. Of course, there's the kids, there's the ones that come out of college and immediately move into, and they might bounce around within the industry, but then there's just as many people who come into our industry 10, 20, 30 years after our high school, and they go, this is great, this is for me. People leave, come back, and so yeah, there's just so many different ways to get into this industry, whatever it may be, and yours is certainly unique, but I'm thinking it's also very relatable.
Oh, I think so. And I think there's a lot of 3.5-year master programs out there, because I think there's a lot of people like me out there.
Yeah, they invite me like weekly on LinkedIn and email, hey, have you considered doing one of these? So there are plenty. You're not kidding. There's a lot of people out there too have taken advantage of it, which is fantastic. So when we that starts to make paint. I didn't know all that, which is really cool because now it starts to. I was gonna say at first it starts to explain some of our experiences, but to me it actually makes them even more confusing. Part of it is, you and I have worked together in a couple of different ways where you have intentionally sought out to set the culture, the tone, the people side of our business, whether it's within your office or more specifically what I'm thinking of is on projects. So you've done some pretty large projects, and even to this day, when people hear that, when they hear your name, they go, "Oh yeah, she did this on this project, and it was so cool." And it's always an example of what Rhona did to help us have fun, set the tone, set the culture, be people focused, all those things. And so, everyone talks about it, but you just do it. And I'm curious to know, number one, what did you do, and what have you been doing, and why is that important? Why do you do these things? And the examples though are let's start with those.
So, I guess I'll bring us, I think I met you one other time before I would say like the spark really happened for the big project, that to kind of frame the context of the conversation in. So most of this work that's very evident in public came out of the North Austin campus for Texas Children's Hospital. And we had one kickoff meeting, and our second meeting that we had was a breakfast club meeting with Kyle. And we brought Kyle in for a reason. And I think really that was kind of the spark that kind of initiated the whole journey of the project from there forward. And so what I remember from the meeting, everyone was really excited and pumped up. We just won a huge project, and everyone wants to do a good job. That's a basic tenet, I think. I feel like maybe there's some people out there that maybe don't want to do a good job, or maybe don't want to do, sorry, I have a cuckoo clock. I don't know if you can hear that.
Loud and clear. Who?
Okay.
Who?
Sorry. I digress. So we can restart that.
That's fantastic. Wait. Back up for a second, because let's talk about this context first. So we're at a contractor's office in Houston, and yep. I'm there to just facilitate a breakfast club. Yeah. And I remember I was asked, can you stick around for a few minutes afterwards and talk to a subset of the people who are going to be there? Because they just want a big project, and it'd be nice to hear from another owner, like some of the work you've done with strength finders and team building and that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, that sounds like that's fine. So it wasn't a workshop. It wasn't a formal thing. It was just, let's chat for a few minutes. At least that's what I remember. It was teed up.
So, we went through the exercises, and then, you did present strength finders. And I also remember that we talked about, I think, how we do the sticky notes at the end.
Mm-hmm. What's on your mind?
I think we did like, what song are you thinking about? I don't know. I just remember I wrote down Lizzo, Good as Hell. I remember that specifically. And yes, we talked about it it was kind of like the chit chat at the end of a meeting, and we kind of all went on our way. But I would say out of that breakfast club, we made a conscious decision to focus on the team and doing extensive team building and kind of culture building on the project. And I will say this, that it was a very conscious effort, and that the owner was interested in working on this culture as a group. which I think is very important. And so, we walked out of there, and it's kind of, oftentimes I was like, well, how are we going to do this kind of thing? Because it's, a lot of people don't focus on it. If you get a big job, you're kind of running around with your hair on fire and thinking like, how, we just got this job. I know there's an end, and there's going to be a building and a campus and infrastructure and all of this stuff. But how do we actually get there? And it can feel overwhelming, and everyone is like, ready to go, ready to show their worth. I deserve to be at the table. I'm here for a reason. And and to harness that energy productively so people aren't stepping on each other's toes. I think the whole team building structure that we went through really facilitated how we spent a lot of time on how are we going to work together, and really had exercises where we talked about what worked well on projects, what didn't work well on projects, and kind of we reduced those exercises into a team charter, which was a poster that had some basic principles that we all agreed to work within. Communication, being clear and direct. We were going to respect each other. And I won't go through them all, but one of them was to have fun. And how do you have fun on a highly stressful, tight schedule project? But we managed to do it because I think we were thoughtful about how we wanted to work together. No one likes feeling poo-pooed or disrespected or not feeling heard. And so we really did a lot. We had a lot of things that we did that may not seem important or worth time and effort. But in the end, it really, on the backside, it was like smooth sailing. Because we were such a cohesive team. People that came on later in the project would often say they didn't know who worked for which company because we were just so woven together and tight. But yeah, I will say it was a lot of work up front and throughout to kind of make this charter. And we basically made a book which had the charter. We all signed it. We all agreed that that was the way we were going to work together. And then we had our strengths. We had a team questionnaire, which had some random questions, like if you like coffee or tea, or cake or pie, stuff like that. But it also had, how do you like to be communicated with? And like some deeper questions like that. To kind of help people, like everything's not going to be perfect, but how can we make it better for every individual? So kind of knowing how, if someone's an email person and you're teamsing them, they're not going to want to talk to you that way. Or, some people write really short emails and some people write, a thesis. So how do you get everyone to kind of realize, they're not going to get back to me for a day because they're writing a thesis. But when they finally get back to me, it's going to be very succinct and I'm going to have all the information I need to do my job. So it's all of these intangible things that we kind of gave everyone this book that had a whole lot of information on everyone on the project and everyone that wanted to do great work together. We also had we took our strength finders and we analyzed them, and we had a whole bunch of achievers. So that made the owner really happy because they thought, well, we're going to get this done kind of thing. So
Rhona, this whole idea of a high-performing team that's super cohesive it feels elusive for a lot of people, where it's the once in a career or a couple times in a career kind of thing. And here, I love that you've manufactured it, right? But so who was involved in that initial decision to say, this is the path we're going to head down, right? I mean, was it just so you and, architecture leadership? Like, how did you kind of pull the other members in and you all go, yeah, let's do this?
It was really, it was the architects, it was the owner, and it was the contractor. We decided it was worth the time to put this effort into place. And, it was, I had never done some of these things that we did. I think I remember Kurt Neubeck saying to me, oh, well, let's make a team charter. And I'm like, what does this mean? What are you talking about? But we took these ideas that everyone brought to the table and kind of simmered them down to some very succinct ways that we were going to work with each other. And we had everyone sign it kind of like a contract, like we're all going to do it together. But, there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be issues. And I think, at certain times I'd have to, the team charter, and you'll hear this if you are familiar or see the work, the team charter mantra was one team, one goal. And it really became about that. We reduced the schedule so much that the goal kind of had to be, we were all working for that goal. And so, you had to realign every once in a while. And if things got really crazy, we would say we're doing it for the children, to really kind of push it over. Because, if let's just say someone's having a really horrible time on a portion of the project, and you're kind of like, you can be at a helpless point, and it really is a redirection tool to put the focus back in place to get us over the line.
So when things would get a little sideways, is it someone raising their hand to just kind of call out the accountability side to say, all right, guys, remember, we signed this charter together. Let's kind of bring the focus back.
Yeah, it was me. I was a bit of a police officer sometimes. Well, so I'll tell one story. We had two consultants working on one portion of the project. One group was working on the specs and stuff, and the other group was QA/QC. So it was a very unusual situation. And I will say that first meeting did go sideways, and I had to kind of tell everyone that this is how we're not going to work together like this. It wasn't right the way we were talking in that meeting. And so I had to have some level set conversations, and it did end up, working well. But it did, I think that's a classic example of, wanting to show your worth and just doing it a little too aggressively.
If you go back to that conversation, do you have any recollection of why you decided to lean into that and say, this isn't how we're going to do it. Let's try again. We need to behave differently and communicate differently. What caused you to speak up and call them out?
I guess I felt like, I was the project manager and I needed to say something. I couldn't just not say something, because it could just have unraveled. And I guess talking about the project a lot, I think an unraveling is something that's it is easy to occur. It's like that classic, saying that one bad apple makes the whole bushel bad. It's very easy for some event to occur and kind of spread the distrust and the angst or whatever you want to say. And so I would often sweep in immediately if something was going awry. So yeah, I was kind of like a little mini police officer sometimes, just trying to remind everyone this is why we're here and get the focus back.
So even with the charter and all the other exercises up front, there was this constant maintenance. Maintenance might be the wrong word, but it kind of feels like that, where you say the mini police officer. It took somebody to. Did you ever see other people start doing the same thing?
Absolutely.
So
yes,
you
I had deputies. Absolutely.
You had a posse on that. Okay, that makes sense being in Houston. Okay, or in Austin. I mean, I could just see you with your sheriff hat and a horse coming into town. All right, we're gonna run this project.
I like that.
That's cool. And it makes a lot of sense.
Did you have to ask people to step in that way, or did it seem to naturally happen?
I think, I guess it naturally happened. And I think it happened at multiple capacities, kind of as, I'm just going to jump back a minute and just say that, we were awarded the project in early 2020. We had our kickoff in February, and we worked for 6 weeks, and the project went on hold for another 6 weeks. And then when it came back with a vengeance. And we had to shore off like months off the project. So it was a very collaborative effort to shave time off our schedule. And it was difficult to find the time. So, we were thrust into this big project during the pandemic, and we knew we were going to use Zoom, and we knew we were going to use tools like Bluebeam Studio and stuff like that to collaborate, because we had multiple offices working on this project. So there was a lot of stuff in place, but we had to, we established a lot of things that some people may not like to spend the time on, but we spent time on, like how we were going to work in Bluebeam together, how we were going to run meetings. And I guess back to my deputies, in the meetings, I always had co-hosts in Zoom, and those people had muting abilities and other like extras to kind of help manage the meetings. So it kind of happened naturally, but yes, I absolutely had, my lead PAs, Margarita and Emily Barris, Margarita de Monterosa, and Emily Barris, they were always co-hosts and always looking, as the classic, someone not being on mute and saying something bad would occur. Yeah. So yeah, it takes a team, and it takes a team that really is that we all took it to heart, and we all made sure we were working within that framework.
So what I'm hearing, right, and I'm really hammering in on this point, because getting people to change behaviors from the way I've always done it is really hard. And so what I'm hearing actually is there really wasn't a lot that happened by accident per se. You teed everyone up. You had conversations, even to the point of how are we going to run meetings? Again, this is something that we frequently don't talk about. But here you're establishing behavioral norms and customs that the team is then going to carry through, and having reminders throughout the project of the behavioral norms that we all agreed we're going to participate in.
Oh, absolutely. We had rules about everything. It kind of, we didn't be like, oh, well, we're going to have rules about everything. We didn't say that's how we're going to start the project. But we it felt like we needed to set rules for how we were going to be in a meeting. So when I'm in other meetings now, I'm kind of like, how are these people behaving themselves? So, if you were part of the core team, you were on camera for every big meeting. If your team, like say we had interiors discussions, the presenter is absolutely on camera, and everyone that's working on that portion of the project is on camera.
Did you ever think, this is a lot of work, this is not going to work out? Did you ever doubt yourself?
I guess I didn't. There was so much work. I don't think I had time to kind of be like, well, I don't know. It was like we were going gangbusters. There wasn't time to really think like that.
There's always time to worry.
Well, I will tell you this.
I can't imagine
I was
that everyone...
so many meetings that, yeah.
I can't imagine, though, that everybody, and maybe it was this way. Maybe everybody was truly, let's put effort into this. This is going to work out. I imagine there were a few resistors.
Absolutely. There were.
But you had enough deputies, enough support, enough momentum to carry through that. See, that's what I'm, okay. And that's a really key
I guess,
point.
like, not to be cliche, but like, can you imagine who would not be like gung-ho about this? I'll give you the answer. I feel like engineers are probably not the first people to kind of, like, it's like feelings and,
it's the worst.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't need someone to kind of come in and tell me how we're going to do things. They kind of, everyone was training everyone kind of thing. And, we were like, let's just say Bluebeam Studio, it's really easy to make someone upset in Bluebeam Studio if you're using a color that you just think is a pretty color on this project. We had specific colors for each entity, and you had to be working in those colors because everyone's brain became trained to know who was that voice. So yeah, it was a lot, like down to the minutia. You had to be like, okay, like we're not going to do it this way. But we would say it respectfully. This is how we're going to do the project together.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that people could be taking this. Is it, you talked about the police metaphor. I think we see a lot of, and it goes with pull plans, it goes with team building, it goes with charters. We see a lot of one time thing, and then, all right, now we got to get to work. And then that pull plan or that charter sits somewhere for the duration of the project. And if we revisit it once, we're lucky. And that's a challenge. And it doesn't matter the size of the project. It doesn't matter what the team is either. It could be an architectural project. It could be a technology project. It could be any group of people working towards any project goal. Knowing that, look, we're going to be intentional about how we behave, how we run this project, how we treat each other, how we hold meetings, how we process things, talking openly about those processes. And then holding ourselves accountable to, we have what I heard you say before, which I think was really brilliant, was you have different people who bring different expectations to the table and different ways of engaging. And what you're trying to do with building on, do you like coffee or tea? Do you like long emails or short emails? Do you like to communicate directly? Do you like to talk for a while before we actually get down to business? Figuring those out based on the people who were involved allowed you to craft rules of engagement that allowed those people to maximize how they already see the world and change, I want to say slightly, but in most cases, what it sounds like, you met the people where they were and asked them all to change just enough that they could work with the rest of the people around them.
Yeah. Very well said, Kyle.
Well, I mean, it's brilliant. No, you didn't come in and go, we're going to do this different. And everyone, here we go. We're going to do it different. And it wasn't, I know the answers, so I'm going to tell you how to do it. It wasn't that at all. It was, you took the approach of who's here and what do you all bring and how can we make all that work together really well?
I think that's really key because it kind of goes back to the beginning. And we basically asked everyone what works well on a project that you've really, really liked. And everyone has had a doozy. And it was a really horrible project that, could probably still make people cringe. What was not working? And so, we were really thoughtful about all of those, what everyone was bringing to the table, and finding those consistencies, and bringing it forward as a group.
So I would love to continue talking. And I think what I would really want to know, and we might have to have you back, because what I'd love to know is, from all the stuff you did on this project, this was a multi-year, this was a long project, very big one. What have you done since? And what impacts have you been able to carry forward? What have you been able to replicate? What have you been able to, best practices, that sort of thing? All the business buzzwords, but I'm more like, how did this experience change you, and what are you doing now with it because of it?
I will say I absolutely start meetings with music. I found that everyone, that just speaks to people's like inner being, and no one likes being in like a Zoom call, or frankly in a room. No one likes a quiet room when you're nervously anticipating bringing your ideas forward to important people. So it kind of takes the edge off. And it can also frame the meeting in a very ephemeral way that I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I do know that people love it. So, I will absolutely keep playing music at the front end of meetings.
And we will keep playing music at the end of our podcasts, which is just about time. We're here. Thank you so much, Rhona, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your insights. It's great to spend some time hearing about what you did, how you did it, the impact. Because I think so many people, like John, you hit on it before, this kind of stuff can often feel very elusive. Like it's here's all the reasons why I can't do it where I work. And here you are going, well, it just seemed like the right thing to do, and it made a lot of sense. And for the good of the people there, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to say, the best thing I appreciate was how you totally called out the engineers. Thank you for that. That made my day.
I do love engineers, but you know the type I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and
he's
I
right here in the middle of my screen.
About.
He's right
there.
Some
of us have feelings. We just choose when to let you know that we have them. I do
on that.
I do. John. I will. But I know you. We do need to wrap. But I really do. I want to reinforce that piece. People think that this is hard, and I hear work. But the fact that you started this whole thing with an idea that became a conversation, that's really not that hard to start changing behaviors by saying, well, what do you guys think about doing something differently? So again, listener, I want you to hear that part and really dig in. It's doable. It's possible. This is a wonderful example of how to actually get into the weeds and really carry it through. So Rhona, thank you very much for sharing the story.
Thank you for having me. And I will, just to piggyback onto your last statement, there goes the cuckoo clock again. It may feel very uncomfortable to do something you think could be cool or change things the first time. And I will say, the first time I played music at the front end of a meeting, I was, I had sweaty palms and was like, I hope this goes over okay. But when people showed up to the meeting and their faces lit up, it was worth it. And so hopefully everyone out there can try something different and have it light someone's face up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As always, you can find us at ripplintent.org, LinkedIn. Find John, find me, find Rhona. We're all out there. Connect with us. Let us know your thoughts and appreciate listening. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.